So when we engage with a new customer, right, and they're inundated with tickets, and they're typically across the board. One day it could be HCM, benefits, absence, payroll, what have you. What do those first couple of weeks look like for us when we get in there to really show immediate value and I guess get them from stopping to tread water and make an immediate impact? What's that look like for us?
Sure. Well, first of all, in most cases, even though a client may have a help desk ticketing system,
Sure,
right? Internally, right, in terms of tickets and gathering information, a lot of times clients don't even have that part, let's say, together and organized and prioritized.
right.
So certainly coming in and helping a client look at the issues, help them decide how to gather all the different pieces of work that they're facing at that particular juncture, how to prioritize those pieces of work,
Right.
is definitely a bit step one. That doesn't mean that we can't start working on things right away. We can determine some real immediate things that as we're organizing and putting together now,
Right.
a bit of
My mind goes to payroll when you say that.
exactly, right? When you're doing your portfolio management, obviously things that flow to payroll
Yeah.
obviously are the top of stack.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And it also depends what's going on at that particular point. And I think in other conversations we've talked about kind of the importance of benefits and open enrollment, type of things that happen over and over again each year.
Yeah.
Depends what kind of those things are going on, right, that also determine those priorities. But, organizing and prioritizing the work is something that we help clients do because they don't necessarily know the order in which things should happen yet in Workday, especially if they're brand new to Workday and they just implemented recently. So we do that, number one. Number two is, like you said, we try to work our way backwards, generally from payroll, because that's where the majority of the issues are, right? And we try to find areas that are, let's say, low-hanging fruit in terms of that provide immediate impact, that can be done quickly, and try to get those done up front. So because they have to, the team also has their own stakeholders internally that they have to show progress to, right? In terms of moving things ahead and so forth. So trying to find those things that are going to help the team also build trust with their user community is important as well.
Yeah, I think I was about to say something similar. I think it's empowering the team because they probably haven't had the best experience with Workday, and I think that's where we can put our spin on this and make them feel that things are going to be okay by adding some immediate value and solving some low-hanging fruit type of items, and then moving forward to the more critical issues.
Yeah, I think that even if your implementation has gone swimmingly, right, and you did everything you wanted to do in your scope of work and everything, we do often see teams struggle in that transition, even though there's hypercare that comes in afterwards after an implementation for a certain amount of time from the implementation partner.
They're on their own now.
Now they're on their own, and it's the first time they're going to face it, and they remember having the conversation. They may have some notes and so forth, but now they're dealing with it up front the very first time.
Yeah.
And we can come in and kind of help guide them. And again, the path to self-sufficiency, if that's what their goal is.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. I think you'd be amazed, or you wouldn't be amazed, but once you get your arms around the issues and start to roadmap out, what the next month looks like, then you move to 6 months and how much that can alleviate the stress from the user group and have them start feeling better about the technology that they've just implemented. Because you have to remember, a lot of this stuff is legacy systems that have been around for 20 plus years, depending on what you're talking about. And you've got a lot of tenured employees who have been doing it a certain way for so long. It can be scary and there can be a lot of resistance, and I think that's where change management comes in for us. You'd like to see it on the front end in more cases, but typically we don't see enough of it. I think we can salvage a lot where customers are a lot of the time by coming in with this model and hitting the ground running and solving some critical issues early.
Yeah, for a solution that isn't technically customizable in the traditional way that programmers think of something being customizable, where you actually change the software in the background. It's customizable through its configuration, right? Yeah. Workday is a very flexible platform. That's a great thing. The challenging thing is that Workday is a very flexible platform, which means that you have to make decisions, right? And you have to make decisions during implementation. You have to make decisions after implementation on the best route to take. And so I think one thing that we really try to help customers do is figure out how to make those decisions. And that's beyond just solving a particular issue, right? It's really thinking about the things, not to solve the immediacy. And sometimes something needs to be fixed right away because it's absolutely on fire and it needs to be resolved.
Yeah.
But we try to, when we can, be able to think it through and think not only what we need to do to resolve it now, but what's the best longer term. And that may be a multi-step approach, right?
Yeah, I think some customers are quick to blame the technology, whereas it may be a business process issue, right? Your organization's been doing this a certain way for so long, and I think that's where we can add value by bringing in a senior level resource who's seen this business process done X amount of times in different organizations and make a quick recommendation, and before you know it, that issue's solved, and it's not the technology, right? You just had to kind of reshape the way you're doing your business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do see often that organizations tend, before a Workday implementation, to be very payroll centric.
Yeah.
And a lot of functions that probably should sit in HR have sat in payroll, and payroll has taken on probably more than they should have to take on.
Sure.
And then also causes an issue where there's not really that segregation of duties that should happen, right, between the information the HR owns that leads to certain payment and the actual execution of the payment itself.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And so when they implement Workday, you're now able to really have that segregation of duties.
Yeah.
But that means the roles and responsibilities are changing, right?
Yep.
And sometimes that's not fully fleshed out before Workday goes live, and teams are now struggling with that piece afterwards.
Yeah, we're seeing more and more of that with launch implementations and some of the scaled down rollouts where there's not a whole lot of front end work. The customer just wants to, they've really bought into Workday. They want to get it live as quickly as possible, and that creates some issues down the line, right? Because I think a lot of the stuff you just touched on should be done on the front end, right? If you're doing it the right way.
And also, a maturity of an organization is not a static thing.
Right.
Right. So putting in something right now that's a bit out of the box can get you to a certain point. But then as the organization matures, you need the implementation of Workday to mature along with the organization. Sometimes the implementation helps drive that maturation process within the organization, right? But so that's why it's not just a matter of helping clients close tickets and resolve issues. It's also thinking about if they want to have an internal support team that they want to now enable and to help increase their knowledge, in Workday so that they can be eventually self-sufficient. Yeah. It's also helping them understand how the team should be organized, how many people that they need. Is there a possibility that this person can handle, not just one area but several areas and so forth, and helping them evaluate, how to build that internal support model as they were helping them resolve issues and transfer that knowledge.
Yeah, and again, it allows them to look more towards the future where, implementing Workday Financials may make a ton of sense for them, right? It may enhance their business or supply chain for that matter, but they just haven't been able to think that way because the HR ticketing side they've just been so inundated with, keeping the lights on from a ticketing perspective. So I think that's where we can, change some things and add some value.